Hello and welcome to Geopolitics 102. Today we're going to be talking about Poland, manufacturing, industry, and politics, and how all the three of them intertwine. Now, when people generally think about Poland, they don't necessarily generally think of global economic powerhouse. No offense to the Polish people. They're not America, they're not China, and they're not even Germany when comparing total economic output and imports and exports. However, when you look at what Poland actually does, what their state and country specializes in, what their major industries cover, that picture shifts a lot. Now, as we start to get into it, we should know what Poland's economic backbone is. It's manufacturing, construction, and logistics, or more clearly, transportation, storage, and trade. Getting back to manufacturing. Manufacturing alone employs over 3 million people in Poland. Now, to put that into context, that's 8% of their population. That's almost 1 in 10. Almost. Now, not only does this make this one of the largest concentrated workforces in Central Europe, but also all of Europe, okay? I just want to put that in perspective. It is the largest industrial workforce in Europe. It is the country in the European Union that moves, stores, repairs, and redistributes things. It is the country, it is the Amazon. I want you to think about that, like about Poland like that. It is the Amazon, except not only does it distribute things, it also fixes things, moves things, and stores things, okay? Now, when talking about sheer economic volume, it's kind of a disservice to the people of Poland, because when you take the total economic dollar amount that runs through the country or annually per year in their GDP, Poland looks like a mid-tier country or mid-tier European country at that. But what we're not taking into account is Poland has somewhere close to half the population of Germany, of France, a similar population, but still slightly less of the last census data that I saw, to the Great Britain. It is fighting all of these numbers, arguably competing with the largest economic powers in its region with a fraction of the population. Poland's per capita, all that means for the context of this video and for future videos, is when you take a per capita estimate, is you divide by the total number of people. That's it. You take whatever you're measuring, divide by the total number of people, that's what per capita means. When you take a per capita measurement of Poland, it dominates Europe in basically every category. Now, as we start to break this down, there's two major reasons that I want to highlight on why this is occurring. Broad umbrella between the two is Poland is a working economy. First point, the people of Poland just generally work more than the average EU people. It's honestly pretty stark. Depending on the area you take information from, it's anywhere from they're working 2 weeks more per year at 40-hour work week, or they're working up to 4 weeks more per year, 40-hour work week. That's a half a month to a month than the rest of Europe. When you look at Germany, they're working 2 to almost 3 months more out of the year. Just for context. Now, the second part of this, number 2, point 2, is the vast majority of Poland's total market value and economic life is directly dependent on factories, machines, vehicles, warehouses, railways, and other physical infrastructure. So trains, planes, things to get other things from point A to point B, or to store things in point B. In working economies, stability matters. So fluctuations, spikes or drops, or increases or decreases in the prices of oil or gas, these affect the Polish economy way more on a real scale, on a direct scale, than people of almost any other country in Europe. Because of that, predictability matters. People want, generally over time, things to get better for their kids, but they don't want anything scary or anything urgent, anything, an emergency that really shocks the market happening right now to them. Because of that, disruption is feared, because disruption in the economy usually leads to an effect on people's wallets. And in Poland's case, it happens rather quickly. Now, before we move forward, I should also mention the other half of Poland's economy, the other significant portion, which is white-collar work, as we would call it in America. We're talking about finance, we're talking about universities, we're talking about media companies, we're talking about government work, we're talking about IT, professional services, fine dining, all this stuff. It's in the major cities. Now, these sectors are heavily dependent on institutions rather than physical machines. They benefit from EU integration, international investment. This economy of Poland is very 50-50. You have one side of people benefiting from one way of living, one way of making money, one way of specializing in things, and you have the other half of Poland literally benefiting from everything in the opposite direction. This will come full circle later, but now I want to put down some context before we get into political polling. First off, the divide in Poland's politics is structural. It's not just cultural. We're talking about literally in 95% of cases, 98% of cases, we're talking about literally how people of Poland make a living. Poland's politics directly impact people's jobs all over the country. We're talking about literally how people make money. I want to put that out there right now. It's not just cultural. It's literally affects people's wallets. The more urban communities get financially rewarded as Poland renews flexibility, renews more cooperation internationally, more cooperation with the European Union, more integration with the European Union. We're talking about more international investment, and this typically directly slides with the political party called the Civic Coalition, right? Now, the other major political party of Poland sides with more industrial and manufacturing type of economies that reward reliability. The state, or the PIS party, or the Party of National Conservatism, has talked about and has executed on an investment in small communities via giving people a stipend for essentially having kids, for staying married and having 2 or more kids. It's a permanent, unconditional child tax credit with no work required for the parents. Now, going forward, I want to talk about how both responses are completely irrational. If you look at it objectively, as a human being, both of these sides of the political aisle, they are both fighting for literally what creates a better future for their kids and puts more money in their own wallet. So both responses are natural and rational. It's also important to note that Poland has a multipolar system. This means that in the last 3 presidential elections, presidential elections happen every 5 years in Poland. For the last 3, neither of the 2 parties that I just mentioned got 51% of the vote. There are 3 minor parties, each with their own individual ideas and ideologies and ideas and economic policies that they stand for. They were cut out just the case of time. But what's important is one of the 2 parties typically that I've mentioned previously, they have to get at least 1, usually 2, of these minor political parties, and they have to compromise with them to get a vote above 50% of the national polling. This is important because even though minor parties in, for example, America might just get steamrolled, in Poland, they have the exact opposite power. If they position themselves well, they arguably get almost just as much power as the major power that's sponsoring them. Now, I went through a lot of debate about adding this chapter, but this is specifically for my American audience. I want to explain Poland in a broad stroke, especially for kids. Think of Poland, I want you to think of Poland like a cross between Texas, Ohio, and Michigan. It's Texas, it's a border state. If Texas sat in the middle of Germany and Russia, what would they do? If it ran a Michigan-sized, we're talking about almost literal numbers, a Michigan-sized manufacturing base, and if it was like a corridor state like Ohio, everything runs through it, east to west, all at the same time. Poland makes components and goods. Poland moves goods like Amazon, and Poland sits in a place where geography matters, where they have been on their heels, on the defensive for their entirety of modern history. As we take a step back and look at Poland from a bird's eye type of view, it's a lot easier to see Poland not just as a country, but as an interconnected system with history concerns on one end, with economic concerns on another, but economic concerns are split depending on where you live. And typically, not always, but typically, who you vote for. All of these things are interconnected. That's the whole reason why I built this show. Because I want to show people that an economic crisis in the Middle East affects Poland's oil industry and oil prices and prices of electricity. So that affects Poland's rural and small town communities in a huge way. Something happening on the other side of the world affects Polish people the next day. When you look at Poland as not just a country, but as an interconnected web of different industries, politics, history, interests, corporate interests, EU interests, oil and gas interests, small town interests, you start to get a fuller picture. Now, hopefully I've done a good job of this, of at least showing a baseline and showing the basic framework. I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for watching Geopolitics 102. Please join us next week as we cover Poland's defense spending and Poland's stance and preparations for their geopolitical future. And I really do hope that if you enjoyed the video and enjoy what we're doing, then you'll consider subscribing to the channel and dropping a comment down in the box.